Magic. It's a very prominent feature in the fantasy genre, and one of the most well-known fantasy gaming franchises would have to be The Elder Scrolls, which does in fact have a heavy element of magic usage. In the game, it can mean life or death for the player character, with restoration spells healing their war-torn body, or the more destructive spells like Sparks, Fireball and Frostbite to name a few, all acting as the more offensive spells in the player's arsenal. Sadly, it's not just the protagonist who can wield such power. Any mage within Tamriel, who has a certain degree of training, could potentially do the same that the player could do to them. But what about awesome planet Earth? You and I. Could we wield such power? Well, today I'm going to take an in-depth look at Skyrim and our real world, then ask, along with hopefully answering, a very interesting question. Is it real? Or, more importantly, can we actually use technology instead of magic to make all of our problems just go away? Let's start with one of the most common spells that I personally use in Skyrim, assuming that I go for a magical approach. Fireball, or in some early cases, Flames. It's one of the default spells that you receive from the get-go. As soon as you step out of the character creator, you can basically scald your enemies after enrapturing them in fire. Sure, it may not be the best way to deal with certain foes, but it is certainly one of the better options at the start of the game. Taking Flames is a prime example, since everybody who's played the game will have had the spell, even though they may have opted out of using it. Flames, at its optimised form, has the Dovahkiin, or the player character, shoot out from both hands. It does not have a very long range, however it can get you out of a tight situation. The spell deals a total of 8 damage per second, with extra damage being dealt for opponents who catch fire from the spell. It can be useful near the start of the game to get yourself out of a pickle. That being said, it can only last around 7 seconds of total usage at level 1, having a consumption of 14 magicka per second. So in the right situations, being used intelligently, the novice level destruction spell can in fact be very handy. However, can we reproduce such a feat in real life? Ideally you would want something handheld, or even a piece of technology that can be attached to the user's wrist. There are many flamethrowers that use a specific mechanical function to utilise a certain quantity of gas to produce large amounts of fire, mainly to burn out enemies in war. The concept has been around for a fair few years, and by that, I mean a long ass time. There are remnants of documents and pieces of the actual gear themselves that have been uncovered and studied by historians in recent years. It's said that the first concept of the flamethrower was actually done by the ancient Byzantine Empire in the 1st century, estimated around 672 AD. Back then, it was much more crude, with oil being spat out of warships onto another, with a source of fire being shot out immediately after. It was extremely effective against the mostly wooden boats. With the oil strengthening the fire, it could actually keep it afloat without winning immediately, killing any pursuit who escaped the immediate impact of the fire blast. Nowadays we think of the World Wars or Vietnam when discussing flamethrowers, which the typical depiction of them came from. They do come in all sizes and have certainly developed since the ones we've seen being used in the wars throughout history. They've even been used for other things, rather than just war. The Pyro Mini is a device that can be attached to your wrist with a detachable wrist strap, and it is basically a magical device. By that, I mean it's used in magic. It shoots out a dense flash cotton that, when fired, triggers a flint to set it alight and then create a small fireball. The latest model of the device has added functions to launch 2 fireballs at once. It's a compact device that can be hidden in your sleeve or really anywhere in your surroundings, and can be triggered remotely or via a button atop the physical apparatus. Not good enough for you? Okay, it's not exactly something that you can use to burn a man wearing steel body armor with. Luckily for you, I have exactly what we're looking for. So we can shoot fire out of our hands in the Elder Scrolls games. I think it's time to do it in real life, don't you? I present to you the DA300 K-Ton. It's only in its prototype phase, and it doesn't have any major financial backing yet. However, this device has been a project for the small company Biomech Systems over the past few years. It uses a similar technology found in most lighters, and uses lighter fluid, otherwise known as butane, as the fire's main ingredient. The K-Ton seems to have a similar range to the Flame spell in Skyrim, when it has its settings to release a large amount of butane, so it definitely checks out. The only annoying thing about this find was the lacking of advancements. Biomech doesn't seem to have large funding behind this project, and seem to be a fairly small company. So maybe someday, a larger company will take them under their wing and make this dream a more established reality, because I'm pretty sure we'd all love to have some fun shooting fire out of our hands at some interesting targets at a firing range. Remember health and safety and all that when that day comes though. From burning your foes to a crisp to zapping them with an electrical current, the ways of turning your enemies a new one is quite varied in Skyrim. The Spark spell, much like the Flames, is a fairly early spell to acquire. It works in a similar manner to Flames, in that it can be used by one or both hands and is a continuous flow of the magical spell. The Spark spell consumes 19 magicka per second, which is more than the Flames. However, what you get from that is 8 shock damage per second to your opponent's health, along with half of that damaging their magicka, giving you a minor advantage in your next move in the battle with them. However, I've got some pretty frustrating news. It would be darn near impossible to recreate sparks with the real world tech, considering the large power source and humongous amount of energy required for the electricity to travel through the air and penetrate the human body. Things like Tesla coils are near to being harmless at the voltage that we're seeing in the real world. However, there are a few weapons that can utilise an electric current to disable or immobilise threats. Sure, immobilizing someone is a far cry away from outright killing them with magic, but it'll have to do. The Thunder Generator was originally conceived to get rid of pests like rats and birds who were eating crops and farms. It is known to be very successful in this, as it sends out a series of shockwaves which affect any creature up to 100 meters or 328 feet away. It has also been known to stun and even knock down individuals in its path. The way it functions is that it shoots out petroleum and cooking gas into the air. Then, a shockwave, which is triggered by an electrical current, generates energy bouncing down the barrel. Once it reaches the end of the barrel, the original wave of energy has multiplied and fires out multiple invisible shots, each lasting around 300 milliseconds. It is certainly an interesting advancement in non-lethal technology. Then, there is one fatal flaw. Well, it works out well for us, but in real life, not so much. When the wave is sent out of the barrel, it is still very strong and slowly weakens as it gets further out. If a man or woman wanders by it as it's getting triggered, they have a chance of fatal injury or even death. There has been numerous instances of this, and the key point seems to be anywhere less than 10 meters or 33 feet away. So the Thunder Generator can certainly knock down, damage, or even kill people at the right range. However, it is a little bulky. I could always throw in a lovely little regular boring ass taser, couldn't I? Fuck that. Boom. The Taser Shockwave. Imagine a taser on steroids, and then it had sex with another taser on some other performance enhancing drug. This is probably what its offspring would look like. The Shockwave is a military grade series of taser cartridges that have been wired together. The units consist of 6 individual cartridges, each of which fire 2 probes at slightly altered angles. One for the head and one for the nuts, am I right? Anyway, the main purpose of this is for crowd control, as it's fairly difficult to halt targets who are massed together without having to go down the lethal route. This device has served its purpose well, with stopping suicide bombers from entering restricted areas, possibly saving many lives. In the Middle Eastern campaigns, it has been used at checkpoints and atop Humvees for mobile use. And if you really want to make sure your target or group of targets go down, there is a function to attach even more stacks, creating a wall of disabling tasers that will chew you up and spit you out if needs be. So, moral of the story is, you don't want to be on the wrong side of these bad boys. Although it may not be the most mobile thing in the world compared to things like the regular stun gun tasers, it's still fairly movable, and if you're feeling like it, it can be handheld. Sure, it's not quite the actual Spark spell, however it can certainly deal some serious damage to a group of enemies if used correctly. Another technique that can definitely be a hard hitter on the battlefield would be using the ice spells, more specifically the Frostbite spell. It too is a novice level destruction spell. It functions just like the previous spells that I've mentioned, but in this case it projects out a cool vapor that turns into ice when in contact with an object or another being. When being used, it consumes 16 magicka per second, and on contact it dishes out 8 ice damage per second, along with dealing another 8 to the opponent's stamina. The higher level destruction spells in the ice category can occasionally force your foe into a state of being frozen for a few seconds, similar to that of paralysis. However, Frostbite itself doesn't seem to have that same trait. The Cry AC3 nitrogen dispenser is a device that, well, dispenses nitrogen. More to the point, liquid nitrogen. As you all probably know, liquid nitrogen is something that you shouldn't really use without proper knowledge and safety precautions, because if misused, it could end up giving you frostbite. No, not the ability to actually use the spell Frostbite, but the real thing. It will just rub off your skin and will take a heck of a lot to actually lower your body temperature enough to really damage it. However, the threat is still there. Professionally, the AC3 is used by high-tech chefs to flash freeze foods, mainly desserts. It is also used by dermatologists to destroy skin lesions. So, this version of the liquid nitrogen dispenser is pretty tame when you think about it. It's not going to freeze a man or properly damage them without them easily avoiding it, but this device is used in smaller scale jobs, as I mentioned. It is something that you can go out and buy from a store that specialises in such devices, but who knows what level of scale military units or government funded agencies have been doing with this simple tech. With the right engineering, you could probably see some liquid nitrogen guns in the future. Like, proper guns. Okay, maybe not. We have more practical things to deal damage in war or halt criminals, but just imagine an upscaled version of the Cry AC3, and you basically have a Frostbite spell at your disposal. At the beginning of this video, I mentioned 4 spells: Flames, Sparks, Frostbite, and Healing. But of course, I'm not going to talk about healing because there isn't really a device that can just magically heal all of your wounds, no matter what pain you've endured in battle. I have, however, left the best to last. Paralyze is a set of alteration skills in the game, and one particular spell that I've been using recently is Mass Paralysis. It is a master level alteration spell that, given the right amount of charge up time, can basically fuck up any enemy that you want. If you're in a sticky situation and you need an escape, Mass Paralysis can take out large groups of foes at a moment's notice. Well, after you've waved your hands around a little bit. It paralyzes anybody in the near vicinity for around 15 seconds, leaving them vulnerable or allowing you to flee. Mass Paralysis does have one major downside. It requires a max alteration level along with 937 magicka for every time you cast it. But in the right situation, it can be a lifesaver. Why did I save this to last? Well, I wanted to treat you guys to something that I don't know if is super cool or just super dorky of its creators. I present to you fine people of the internet, the Personnel Halting and Stimulation Response Rifle, otherwise known as the Phaser. It was created to be a non-lethal weapon for military and police units. Still in its prototype and testing phase, it has supposedly undergone numerous trials in Kirtland Air Force Base in Albuquerque. Although there have been tests, the weapon apparently doesn't meet multiple UN laws in the way that it functions. So, how does it actually work? It fires 2 non-lethal wavelengths into the eye of a target. Providing that the waves hit the target dead on, they are blinded almost immediately. Moments after this, their body collapses and their nervous system is temporarily disabled. The reason it is undergoing scrutiny is down to a law crafted by and for the United Nations to ban blinding weapons. This is under the 1995 Protocol of Blinding Laser Weapons. Because of this, along with the fact that lasers can affect sight, and in this case long-term nerve damage, the developers of the Phaser are working on new ways to work the device, more safely but still having the same effectiveness. One of the stronger changes that is apparently being implemented is a rangefinder, to make sure said target is within a safe distance to not cause permanent damage. Sadly, due to the regulations of the UN protocol, not much else is known about the weapon. But it could, if perfected, be the next big thing in military or even police operations. So, I just hope it gets more effective and less dangerous. So, that was my video on the lovely tech behind Skyrim's magic. I really enjoyed doing this one as it was a brilliant excuse to jump back into Tamriel once again and experience some of the cool magic in the game. It also brought a few interesting pieces of tech to the light, or at least I thought some of it was pretty cool. If you have any questions about the tech within this video, or just anything in general, you can leave it as a comment, but if there's something you really want answered, you should shoot us a line on our Twitter handle. We're at ShoddyCast, but if you want to aid in my procrastination, you can always tweet me at Stally's Militia. With that little plug out the way, I've got some good news! I'll be streaming once again. This time I'll be live in Tamriel, checking out the new and supposedly improved Skyrim. Yes, I'm playing Skyrim Special Edition. I'll be starting from the very beginning and I'll be allowing you guys to interact with the development of my character if you guys feel like it. Yeah. I'll be live at 6 PM BST, which is the British time, or 1 PM EDT. Pop your head in and say hi, it will be awesome, I assure you. I really hope you guys have enjoyed this week's episode of The Trek. If you did, make sure to drop a like, drop a comment, and subscribe if you've not done so already. And if you want to do more than that, you can share the video with your friends. But we also have a Patreon page that we'd love if you'd had a little peek at. You can pretty much get all of our content early if you're a certain level of patron, along with some other awesome benefits. So yeah, definitely check out our Patreon, and I hope you guys did enjoy this video. So thank you very much for watching. My name is Andrew, or Stelly111, and I'll see you guys on the next episode of The Tech. Bye bye.